Welcome. I'm Melody Brooks. I'm the artistic director of New Perspectives Theater Company, and this is Theater from the Streets. We're working with a group of women who had been nominated for the Gilder Quanier International Theater Award, which is given by the League of Professional Theater Women. In the spring of 2021, when the attack on Gaza was happening, we met and wanted to try to find a response to that. And we decided a smaller group would meet and figure something out. By the time we did that, the ceasefire had been declared, but we knew we wanted to use our talents as theater artists and these connections around the world to try to make a difference, especially in light of the growing authoritarianism everywhere and loss of civil rights. And it's happening here in the United States to a degree that I know that many people here never thought possible. So we decided to do theater from the streets, and we did it as a pilot program with artists in Palestine, Lebanon, India, and Venezuela. We picked curators, they found the artists. We asked for 3 to 5 minute short plays, and then we experienced them together. Moderators put them in context, and we had a conversation with the larger audience. We are supported this time around for round two by the Bariva Foundation, which is located in Liechtenstein. So now I want to introduce Charles Yee, who is our curator in the Philippines.
When Melody invited me to do this project with them, I was very much excited actually, because they asked me to reach out to 8 artists to talk about the loss of civil rights and the rise of authoritarianism in the Philippines. So consciously, I guess, as a curator, it was clear to me that one of the things that I had to do was to make sure to reach out to diverse groups, diverse genders and communities in the Philippines. I was very careful in choosing and making sure that the groups that are represented are not just coming from Manila, but actually from all different islands and regions of the country. So what you will watch today is what the artists want to share in an unaltered and unfiltered way, and in the way that they want to share it.
President Duterte gave a shoot to kill order to his Philippine National Police, to the police, to kill anyone who is accused of being a drug lord or a drug addict.
Don't believe what you hear in the news, son.
Like what? That there is a drug list naming all those who were selling and pushing drugs around here? They had it coming. This place have never been safer before, and that's why me and my friends are out here playing. We feel safe now here. Unlike a year ago, all the bad people here are now gone.
You mean killed and murdered?
Whatever, they had it coming.
They were defenseless and unaware. And you call that justice? Most of them are my friends.
Yes, I've heard you were friends. I've even heard more than that. Wait, is that why you're being paranoid?
Yes, what you heard from the neighbors are true. But I'm no longer that person. Listen, you should remember that no one in this world has a right to judge and execute people. No one. Remember this.
Had these people been following the law, they never deserved the things happening to them? It's that simple, Kai.
No. Everybody deserves a second chance in life.
Excuse me. Are you Joel Jimentesa?
Yes, sir. What's supposed to be the problem, sir?
Can you please come with us, sir, to the police station?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Son, wait for me. This will just take a few minutes.
Dad! Dad!
The play Checkpoint is actually based on a true story, not literally, but someone from our neighborhood who got picked up by the police, being formerly a drug addict, but was already a changed man when Duterte came in, and he was somehow tortured in some way. So the idea here is are there any more safety nets to our society, Philippine society, in problems in situations like this. And also, I added up the idea that the new generation, the kind of perspective they have towards fascism and authoritarianism, they are so misinformed, and I believe that the country's moral compass during Duterte's time went south.
The administration of President Rodrigo Duterte lasted from 2016 to 2022, saw 6,000 to 12,000 lives lost from his violent campaign against drugs. This war on drugs, fraught with police corruption, vigilante killings, and lack of legal recourse of justice, continues to victimize and terrorize the Filipino poor. One of the most harrowing killings of the drug war was 16-year-old Kian de los Santos in Caloocan in 2017, who uttered the words, "Please stop, I have an exam tomorrow," before he was mercilessly killed by policemen conducting a raid. They believed he was a drug runner based on a statement of another arrested drug suspect, despite Kian not appearing on any of their lists. We heard these McCarthyian lists mentioned in the play. To best contextualize the concept of these lists, I will quote from Vicente Rafael's book of essays, The Sovereign Trickster. To be on the drug list is thus to be guilty regardless of one's innocence. Put on the list, one can only be headed not for redemption or rehabilitation, but for a final reckoning. The seeming arbitrariness with which these lists are put together creates a climate of suspicion in the affected communities. And with vigilantes roaming the streets and the police no longer trustworthy, who then could the people turn to?
Sige. Tell us again, Mrs. What happened?
Sherwin came home hungry, but I was getting ready to leave for work.
And then?
He got angry.
We were out of rice. Sherwin was hungry. Was it my fault that we didn't have enough?
He was always a hothead, no? Your Sherwin.
When he's hungry, he's not always like that. He loves me.
And what did you do?
I told him to eat somewhere else.
By 5 a.m., my cousin arrived. Frantic. She told me to go home. She said something happened to Sherwin.
Where did you find him?
The intersection. 3 corners away from our house.
What happened to him?
Natokan. There was a cardboard sign near his body, accusing him of being a drug pusher.
And you're sure he wasn't?
He wasn't what?
A drug dealer.
And if he was, did he deserve to be gunned down like a dog?
Mrs., I'm saying that might have been the reason he was killed. Do you have any idea who killed him?
Of course I do. Who else carries out these drug war killings? Ask the whole country. We know who does the killings. It's you.
Sherwin. David, 28 years old. Unmarried. Next of kin unknown. Autopsy declined. Cause of death. Heart disease.
Just to give you like a background on the term, so EJK, it means extrajudicial killing. We don't have the death penalty here in the Philippines, but that's what we call when there are public executions. And we also have tokhang. So tokhang, tok tok is a sound that we make when we're knocking on the door. So it's a police campaign where authorities are knock on the doors of those who are listed in the drug watch list to stop their criminal activities. So the PNP or the Philippine National Police are allowed to just come into your homes, to knock on your homes without arrest warrants, to check on you, to check if you're using drugs or if you're keeping drugs. And as you know, we have like more than 20,000 EJK killings during the Philippine drug war, and 2,500 of those are associated with the Philippine National Police. And there are instances where the Philippine National Police are falsifying the evidences. And I think that encapsulates the whole digital performance of the report, where, you can see the anatomy of the judicial system, how it works to enable the impunity during the Philippine drug war without helping, the victims. And what the report actually does is to humanize these victims.
Let's say Papa and my brother were using before. We have rehabilitation. They promised that there'd be rehabilitation. But what did they do? They killed people. So that's why I'm not being honest if I say I want them in prison. No, I want them dead. If people followed my orders, if I only served my interests, I know it's wrong, but what they did was wrong too. So if I'm in power, I want them dead. Kill them, or have them feel what it's like to be robbed of your family. But of course, if I'm to be like that, to do those things, I'll be on their level. In the end, I'll be the evil one. But as someone who's experienced it, I want it to stop. I really want it to stop. Not just for the numbers to go down. I want no news about it. I hear the drug war will continue. I want it out. I don't want it to go on because it seeds a hate that's unlike anything. We all fall short, don't we? But to kill like you're nothing and then swindle you in the process, I love them, they're my blood. And that happens to them. Even the blood of the children will boil over this. Because I remember, even if I don't want to, as I'm talking to you, as I cook, it hits me just like that. Sometimes when I see a family, I get jealous. Why do they have each other and I don't?
In a question of power, this counters the narrative that drug pushers are bad people. What they actually need is rehabilitation. And what a question of power and the report does is to present as facts and archives. They were performing archives to give us facts to counter the lies that are being propagated in virtual platforms, saying that the problem in the Philippines are drug addicts, when in the question of power, it roots to the corruption that is happening in the Philippines.
I just wanted to ask about this strategy by the governing class, the political elite in Philippines, of choosing so-called drug addicts and drug dealers as being the kind of victim group that they wanted to use as a way of exclusion in order to create a justification for their power.
I've been reading a bit about Duterte, especially from Vicente Rafael's The Sovereign Trickster. I think one of the reasons why, at least this is what Vicente Rafael proposes, is that drug addicts were framed by the government as creatures that are considered to be non-human because of the effects of the drugs on their psychological well-being and their mental health. They were sort of reduced as beings to be less of human. And so they were sort of created as instruments of exercising that power. And so the idea that the president had that authority to give and take life was sort of really what they were trying to propagate, that Duterte had that divine right to say whether one is human or one is non-human.
If that was the impulse behind it, which is pretty appalling, and we know, our former person in the White House subscribes to that notion that they should have that kind of power. But has it been successful in getting the community, the population, to buy into that notion? I think that's what, Jonathan, if that's what you were asking, because it's an odd group. It's clearly easy to label drug addicts and drug dealers as less than human, but how do you go beyond that if you want to label more people?
I believe that was successful in sort of a strategy by the government, because people, let's say from the smaller communities, definitely felt, I guess, safer because of the elimination of these people, the people they deemed to be, less proper.
For any oppressive government, it's always about divide and conquer. So just what like Charles said, it's like, choosing who is human, non-human, who's communist, non-communist, as if it's a bad thing. It's an ideology, just so you know. I think it's successful because we have our new president, the son of the former dictator, and it says a lot. When I think he got the landslide vote, 31 million. I don't know. That's questionable. That number is questionable too. So I think it's successful. That's why we're doing these performances right now, because we're trying. Yeah, success in a very negative way. Because these performances, this EJKs and martial law, should not be our contemporary performances right now, but it is an urgent issue and it's recurring. It's been decades since we, ousted the former dictator, and it's all coming back to us. Trauma.
Someone had put in the chat that this is what Duterte he had been a governor, and that he claimed that his province was clean of drugs, and so that this was something he campaigned on. And so then it was, we've heard the stories, I think, around the world. If you think about the stories from the report and from A Question of Power, that we know that these people were not all involved with drugs in any way, or many of them. And even if they were, that it has created this anger in families left behind. And I think about here in the US, we're good at treating lots of different people as non-human. And in particular, population in Iraq and Afghanistan and the Middle East, and that so-called war on terror, that all we did by indiscriminate killing was create more and more people who really wanted to destroy us or hated us. And so that's a question for me is, it's clear that it's there, but how is it, aside from what you all are doing as activists and artists, in the general population, is that anger, is that resistance evident, I guess, for lack of a better way of phrasing it?
It's very attractive to most of the people here in the Philippines, especially that our justice system is really slow, and the idea of swift justice. And then we have this savior president that he would get rid all of the criminals in a very, very short time. He promised 3 months only he will get rid of criminality and drugs. So lots of other people who were really sympathizing for against those rapists, the victims of rape victims. Most of the rapists are considered as drug users. So it really divided. Just what Olive said earlier. It's divide and conquer. For some, it's like finally we have a president who's very sure he has this iron fist. It's like we have a messiah who saved us from all the bad guys. So but that doesn't mean that he was able to solve the drug problem here in the Philippines. He didn't go for the drug lords, and he didn't even provided rehabilitation to the drug addicts. No consideration in terms of health of the users.
In the past few years that we have been working with communities and families of victims of extrajudicial killings, one of the things that really struck out to us is that a lot of these communities are living in extremely poor conditions. They seem to see the drug war as just another shock. These are communities that are usually affected when there's flooding, when there's really strong typhoons. The prices of goods keep rising, so they have to find ways to make money. Fires often break out in these communities, so it's a lot of things. To a lot of the people that we interviewed, of course they're sad, of course they're angry, but there's that resignation that it's just another thing. And I think that's one of the worst things to realize.
Is that something you'd be interested in, Mrs.? An autopsy would give us some answers.
The funeral parlor wants 45,000 pesos to release Sherwin's body so I can bury him.
Can you pay that?
We don't even have enough for rice.
Autopsy would cost more.
Come on, Ma. Tell me the problem.
Short silence. Rosa in deep breaths trying to muster courage. Light switch plus a ting sound. Rosa shifts to her imagination.
Noy, I am so sorry. Please don't get mad at me. I don't want to burden you with my problems, but I really need your help. You see, I saw an app online, and that app, they are willing to lend 10,000 with only a valid ID as a requirement. It was really an emergency since I and your papa have to buy our medicine. At that time, I was really desperate and I don't have a choice. I'm sorry. And in order to pay for my previous loan, they encouraged me to apply for another one until it became 10. And the worst is I have to apply to two online lending companies in order to pay for one. The worst part about these online lending companies, if I borrow 10,000, they only release 8,200 plus additional interest. When I pay my dues late, the interest bloats and accumulates.
I knew it. How much do you owe them in total?
No, 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 they are calling me, the online lending company. They keep on calling my phone since last week. No, I'm scared, no, because the agents of these lending companies are threatening to file a case against me if I don't pay my debt. And worse, they will threaten to post me on Facebook. I don't know what to do.
I really mean nothing to you, don't I? Why do I have to carry all these responsibilities? Look at me. Look at me, Ma! I can't even buy a new pair of shoes or clothes or buy the food I like. Don't you understand, Ma? I have a life too!
Light switch plus ting sound. Rosa snaps out of her imagination.
Ma, what are you doing? I keep on asking you what's the problem and you try to distract and divert my attention with your silly antics. Once and for all, tell me.
In the play Ola, we saw mother and son stuck in a cycle of debt and financial strain. We confront the myth that having a consistently paying job is enough. We dispel the notion that having an OFW or overseas Filipino worker family member sending in remittances is enough. Nothing will ever be enough in a country that asks its citizens to pay with their lives. online banking companies have found ways to help the poor become even poorer. By offering easy loans for inflated interest, these companies prey on the sick, disabled, vulnerable, and struggling. They know that as long bills will never end, so will debt, and so will the need for them. Acquiring a loan through an online lending company, just like falling for a scam, offers none of the embarrassment of asking a friend or family member for money, none of the paperwork required by a bank, and none of the bureaucracy required by the state.
To extract from that, no, the OLA actually means online lending activities. No, and from the Spanish word "hola," which means hello, um, it's usually the first liners of those who will encourage you to apply for the online lending loan. And an online lending scam is a typical topic in Bacolodnon families or immigrant families or even all over the Philippines. Some point it's an internal conflict within the household, but when you come to think of it, it's actually like a domino effect. No, it's an effect of poverty. You know, families making the ends meet, concerns with everyday needs, no, and other responsibilities, no, and also the dynamics of parents struggling also financially, and our common culture in the Philippines where usually the eldest sons or our daughters become our collaterals at some point. There is a notion that we cannot just abandon our families after we graduate. You know, we need to support them. So these are the issues that will tackle or tackles this certain issue of online lending scam. No, it's like a domino effect of a lot more problems.
We all worked hard during the Occupy. We all dared and stood by the barricade because every person, especially the poor like us, has a right to decent housing and a decent life. The military is not letting us be. Sure, we are many, but who is holding the Armalite? And the police are visiting the houses of the group leaders. Until one night, when I was coming home from the construction site, soldiers flogged me and took me to the barracks in San Rafael. They offered me money, 5,000, and groceries. They said I will receive so much more if I just leave the organization. Said they knew I am a rebel leader. How did I become a rebel leader? I just wanted a house for me and my children. They told me if I refuse, they will make a poster of me saying I am an NPA. A communist, like leaders from Kadamay National Office. They said it would be easy to plant a gun on me, arrest me or put me to jail, or include me in the hit list. What could I do?
In 2017, thousands of homeless urban poor led a historic occupation of vacant and idle government housing in Bulacan, a province north of Manila. It came to be known as Occupy Bulacan. The play into the fold brings us into the intimate world of a family caught in the middle of this displacement. Occupy Bulacan was the final straw of a struggle that saw repeated housing applications and bureaucracy with the National Housing Agency. Applications by the urban poor were either denied or ignored. The Duterte regime swiftly moved to quell the people's movement, fearing such collective action could become bigger. They issued entry passes as a way to separate the people who had the right to live in homes and gain access to basic social services. This apartheid action made it extremely difficult for the occupiers to survive. Through militarization, harassment, and Psy-war tactics, the administration managed to sow terror and divide the community by backing up pro-government factions. Now, under a Marcos Jr. presidency, members of the organization Kadamay, which led the Occupy movement, continue to be subjected to relentless red tagging and political attacks.
First, we want to honor the heroism of the people of Occupy Bulacan, the movement that put the issue of housing and corruption in government housing front and center and became a national issue in 2017. We want to have the opportunity to dialogue with people in the country and outside to confront these issues that are still happening in Bulacan, no, in the occupiers. That although they are now starting to own the houses that they occupied, the movement did not stop in 2017. The state fascism continued and continues until now. Like just recently, many more members of Kadamay in Bulacan were being red tagged and were forcibly asked to surrender as NPA or New People's Army. And actually, the red tagging and the fascism, or like what you put, no, Dominic, the apartheid, no, that's happening is not isolated in that part of the Philippines, but it's being experienced by urban poor communities before and now.
Red tagging is a practice that is basically labeling, branding, naming and accusing individuals or even groups of students, schools, organizations of being left-leaning, subversives, communists, or terrorists, basically. So anyone, it can even happen online, where it is mostly happening that you are being red tagged. And when you are red tagged, actually, it opens you up to a lot of harassment, a lot of even assault, and even could even get you tagged to be, for lack of better word, to be killed. So that is what red tagging means.
We're being attacked on all fronts. So it's not just the streets, but also in our social media, in our virtual platforms. And this is the only way that we can, fight the grand narratives or the propaganda that the national government is placing in our virtual platforms.
The 31 million Filipinos who voted for the president in the last election are encouraged to wear a red t-shirt, take a selfie, and make it your Facebook profile picture. Let's show our support one last time.
Oy! Selfie! Selfie, this is direct order to us. Come, do this. Why? For unity, ha? Unity!
You do it yourself. I did not vote last election. I'm not part of the 31 million. You know what? I don't think the gold is here. Huh? I mean, they stole the gold and then buried it in their coffin. Stupid.
Oy, they did not steal that. It was given to them. Oh, I read that.
Where? From the Troyes?
Oy, many people liked, shared, and commented already. So that's the truth.
You're stupid. You're always reading stupid articles and fake news in your cell phone. Look who is stupid.
Oy,
Oh, this plug.
many people believe that already, ha? 31 million proved it.
Living dead or living dead. Just to give you context, we were under 2 decades of dictatorship under former President Ferdinand Marcos Sr. And as you know, his son is our current president. There were lies that were already put into the textbook decades ago, and it was fact checked by our historians. But then, just to give you context, those lies are actually retold by the family through social media. So you will hear terms like the Yamashita treasure and the Taliano gold. This explains the unexplained wealth of the Marcos family, where they say that a certain Taliano family owns a bunch of gold bars, and Yamashita treasure were left behind by the Japanese, and this explains the wealth of the Marcoses, without looking into the corruption issues during their term. And of course, it is also talking about the troll farms that we have in the Philippines. As you know, we have free Facebook in the Philippines, so ordinary citizens can have access to Facebook. So they can just put comments without reading on articles. This is a great place to spread lies or to do historical distortion. That's what we call it. So all the lies that happened during the dictatorship in the 1970s were all rehashed. They are being repackaged as heroes, Marcos family. And the final act of the Duterte regime was to actually put the body of the dictator Ferdinand Marcos in the cemetery of heroes, which was actually a historical distortion for the country. So the two grave diggers were actually talking about the lies that they were talking about in virtual platforms, basing the facts on what they read via social media or because of the 31 million votes that the son of the dictator got during the last election. So it was sort of a warning of a zombie coming back to life, all these lies coming back to life in the living dead.
It's okay. Everybody steals anyway naman. Give me that. Give me that. That's yours. Wait. What's that? What? Oh my god. Shit. They're getting out on the train. Shit. Shit. You're supposed to be dead. You're not supposed to kill people. What is wrong? Stop.
The level by which disinformation has come to a really a halting realization that things have gone, as Neil was saying, down south. But how it has impacted another 6 years of our lives, especially that became evident in this recent election. So our effort was really just that, to somehow render a more satirical view, and hopefully, it's not even comical because it's so real, no, but just how historical revisionism and how just the battle for perception has again come to this point, no, where it has affected a lot of decision making, especially for young people.
It has been 6 years. Time flies.
It's so fast, and how people forget so quickly.
Because we clean people's brains. That's the reason.
Cleaned what?
I mean, brainwashed.
Brainwashed. The people believe in change. But the truth is, change is coming. Martial law was the golden age. The father was kind. The Philippines rose during the golden age. And the only people killed during that time were the communists. That's it. That's what people should be saying repeatedly. Let's post that immediately. It's better to blame others so you never get to see where the root of the problem.
Why is AJK still going on in the Philippines?
Why are you afraid? Are you an addict?
Many were killed and suffered during martial law.
Why are you alive during martial law?
Why is the government's response to COVID-19 terrible?
Why do you have so many questions? Do you want to be the president? Why me? Ba't ako? Ba't ako? Ba't ako?
I think the drug war, and because of fake news and with the troll farms, it really polarized the country. It divided the country so much. Even journalists are divided. Institutions were destroyed by this government. And now, information, it's really hard to, Filipinos do not even know how to spot fake news. Telecoms capitulated on this too, and they used Facebook as a means to spread all these fake news. So we have to find ways. I think now we're trying to find ways to fight back and trying to defend the truth. And it will be a long battle, really, especially if troll armies are very hard to find, but we should. There's no other way. We should fight back.
It's interesting. I'm glad you used the term fake news, because also I know that was in the grave digging one, and that's kind of shocking for us, because we think, under the Trump administration that, the fake news is sort of, limited to us. We can't envision the rest of the world can be as ridiculous as some of the people here, but it shows that it's a global phenomenon. This idea that you can pick and choose your own truth, that the people, and also they talked about the troll farms, and we know that there are plenty of them around, but it's still very shocking to me that it's that widespread. What we discovered in round one, and now has just been highlighted, strengthened again, is the commonality across the world as to what these problems are and what the increasing authoritarianism is doing to everyone everywhere. The idea of the urban poor or the poor in general. I loved in one of the pieces, you can't depend on the government. Don't depend on the government. I mean, we're hearing that from the right wing in our own country now. I think maybe the only major difference in your work is the extrajudicial killings of the supposed drug addicts or drug dealers, but everything else could be happening in any of the locations we visited, and even, as I said, here in the US and places that we're going to get to next time around.
Just to reiterate what's already been said by Melody, these events, barring the actual virulence of the police action and the kind of gang action that's going on in the Philippines, could be happening in the UK, which is where I live. The sense that we're embattled as human beings against these financial, energy, telecommunications, social network, corporate institutions that are predating on our lives and sucking out the life out of us.
In the Philippines is this question of the layers of oppression. In the report is that the wife is also a victim of violence, from her partner. And we saw this across other areas, that when the state is oppressing everyone, that there's then further oppression, particularly against women and in non-gender conforming people.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Jazar, and for tonight, I'm inviting you to be spectators. Spectators. It's a merge between two words, spectators and an actor. So as an actor, your role is going to be a teacher. You're going to be a teacher. Number 3. Trans women are blank. A, women. B, an abomination. C, liars. Stop and think. Number 10. In the Philippines, specific marginalized groups such as women, persons with disabilities, and indigenous peoples have laws that protect them against discrimination and violence. That is the Magna Carta of Women, the Magna Carta on PWD, and the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act. They are all laws that protect their basic human rights. But for the LGBTQIA+ community, lobbying for the SOGIESE Equality Bill proved to be immensely challenging. It is still seen by people in power as special rights and as discriminatory bill itself. Do you agree with this? Why or why not? Stop and think.
Kasarian 101, Gender 101. It explains our lack of knowledge when it comes to gender issues. So it tackles the SOGI bill, or the Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity Expression Bill. It's the slowest moving bill in the Philippines. It's an anti-discrimination bill. It highlights the way we use critical thinking right now, where we have to stop and think. It's like an exam when you're reading on Facebook or when you're reading anything in the internet. The actions of the national government, of the president, the Duterte regime, actually does not support the SOGI bill, and that somehow enables the discrimination against gender.
I was really surprised and heart-filled when I heard the word checkpoint and the word apartheid, and it really talks to exactly what is happening in my country now that we are every day facing the same situation, especially in Jerusalem at the moment. Things are escalating more than ever. I have a very sentimental feeling towards what you have presented to us, and the fact that no matter where we are, as Melody had put it, we could face oppression, we could face the same situation in different places, and such programs, such projects are there just to bring us all on the same page and to create that strong solidarity among us. We're very glad that we do share theater from around the world.
And this entire project really, really reminds me that it's not just us who are facing these struggles, it's all of us. And to help change it, to help move us forward, it's this awareness towards what's going on with other people around the world is a really valuable thing. And using theater to do that, I think, is also a very powerful thing.
We've been trying to look at in round one, but we haven't really addressed it so much here. Is a need now that we've had so many artists from around the world and we've identified these commonalities. You really do want to try to have something maybe in January of convening the artists from all the round 1 and 2 sessions to continue the conversation, because yes, Alan, theater is necessary. It works. We heard from artists in India who were being jailed without bail for long periods of time. And also they were not necessarily in the mainstream, and in Venezuela as well, that we had an artist who the day that we were doing their session informed us that they had to use a pseudonym because they were afraid to put their own name on it, even for this contained small gathering.
All of these pieces are highly critical of the situation in the Philippines. Do you face government repercussion?
We come from very, very different parts of the Philippines, and we each have our own experiences with tackling political issues in our theater.
It's a very weird, how do I say this? It's a pretty weird position to be an artist in the Philippines talking about these things. And I might say something that might offend some people, so I'd like to apologize beforehand. But at least in my experience, theater isn't really a target. It's not as popular, say, as films. It's not as popular as music. So I feel like artists in the music or in the filmmaking scene, if they released something related to this, they might call the attention of authorities who don't like what they're saying. But I don't think us being artists or talking about this particularly makes us a target. However, if we are active among communities that are already targets, and then the danger or the risk goes up. I wish Thea, one of our actresses, was here. She was arrested last month, I think, along with 80 plus other people, artists and farmers. They were just having an immersion talking to farmers in Tarlac, which is a few cities away from Metro Manila, and the cops raided them. They and the other artists were in jail for like a week, I believe.
So far, we have not, as a theater group, as performers, we have not faced like actual repercussions, or we weren't threatened yet, like literally by the state. But working with urban poor organizations and urban poor communities, we see that the threats and the repercussions being experienced by the communities themselves. So I would say that we are still very privileged, so to speak, as artists, because we have that experience what the communities have experienced. One of the artists in prison right now, Amanda Echanis, was a close collaborator of us, a close friend of ours. She was in prison 2 months after giving birth, and now her son is 2 years old, and she's still in prison for just by being an artist and being an organizer of rural women in rural areas in the Philippines.
There are micro threats that have happened in like among it can come in the form of police relatives of our members who will just sort of say like you'll be in the list of this and that, so you best not be involved. Other forms of harassment and threats are really in the pulling out of resources and support. Resources that are otherwise should be going to communities are all politicized. No? So if you don't fall in line with their policies and their decisions, then you're sort of just cut off.
I believe there was a playwright, Rogelio Braga, who was granted refugee status in the UK last year because he faced extreme harassment from the stagings of his plays in Manila.
I am from Mindanao, so if most of you don't know, we are the region farthest down south. We are the most economically deprived. This is the region where Duterte comes from. Yes, there is a massive support of Duterte. For many years before he even ran for president, he was already a legend around here. The things that he did in Davao, the kind of iron hand management that he does. Yeah, that's why if, for example, works like this is shown here, it would largely be frowned upon. Yeah, and I'm being honest with you. So it's different when you have a state-sponsored suppression. It's another thing when it's the community that you are trying to show your work with are the ones that are ostracizing you. And I'm like what Dominique said, the kind of apartheid is actually social, because in here you would be ostracized by what you say, because I would be very honest, not even many of our artists here are strong supporters of the administration. Many, even I come from the academe. I can't even show this to our institution. So the kind of suppression is actually more, for me, cultural in our side, where this oppression is happening in the streets. You still see a strong support of the people for Duterte. That's how fantastic they saw Duterte back then, especially here in Mindanao. So yeah, if the audiences coming from here would see this, it would be largely be frowned upon.
That's very brave of you to be creating this work in a place that is you can't show it there.
Being a student theater, we actually have the responsibility, I believe, to really present performances to the students who are actually, we believe, who have the power to voice out their opinions and what you call this, their thoughts on the current situation of the country. And we've experienced harassment. Some of our members experienced harassment, threats. I believe the artists now, more than ever, have the responsibility to really stand for what is right, especially now that there's a lot of red tagging, historical distortion, misinformation.
We do experience also other things of like performances being stopped by the police. For example, it's not really a theater performance, but recently they had the showing of like an anti-martial law film recently in one of the by one of the groups here in the Philippines, and the whole experience was raided by the police and was forced to stop. So that includes all the people who watched there to also inadvertently be also softly red tagged, if you think about it, because they'll already be taking a peek about the people who attended these performances. And I'd also like to add, being that in the minds of the people, it already creates kind of like a culture of, I guess you can call it kind of a siege mentality, right? Where at any space you perform, you're already looking out for what can go wrong, right? There might be someone in the group or in the crowd that's watching that's actually not really interested in the performance, but rather telling state forces that, oh, there's this performance going on here that's against the government or against that. And then they would come and raid these performances.
Joan Firestone. Joan is with Linda Chapman, who's also on with us, running the Gilda Quania International Theater Award Program at the League of Professional Theater Women, which was the seed for this project to happen.
Is there any change at all in the change of government now that might ameliorate some of the tragedies that are going on?
That is such a difficult and interesting question, because with the arts, for example, the president that we have right now is Bongbong Marcos, Ferdinand Marcos' son, and Imelda, during Ferdinand Marcos' time, was a great patron of the arts. She built so many as part of her edifice complex, she built so many buildings for theater, for film, for anyone to practice the arts, even the Philippine High School for the Arts. She built that. So it's this sort of thing that we're having such grave mixed feelings that yes, the arts, there might be more funding for the arts, there might be more space for the arts, but at what cost? And who's going to get that funding? What kind of people are going to get that funding? What kind of people are going to get those resources? And are we, people who are for the opposition, I guess, or for progress, are we going to have that same space as them? So that is I think that is a very interesting discussion that a lot more Filipino artists, not just theater artists, will have in the future as this new administration progresses, because they just began a few months ago. So we'll see. I don't have a direct answer yet, but given that Imelda is still alive, and now I think that she they would like to, I know that they would like to put more money in the arts, but again, what kind of art, or at what cost would that art be?
I'm grateful to Melanie and also to New Perspectives for enabling this project, and also to all of the artists today for giving us such an extraordinary picture of what's happening. Terrifying, but enlightening.